Chapter 71. Weapons and Skills. Yushio looked at the material warehouse of the equipment editing system. Inside there were still some rare materials that he had recently obtained, but they were not used for the time being. Yushio left the material warehouse, confirmed the modification of the heavenly umbrella, the weapon changed after the progress bar ran out, and left the editing system. Returning to the game, he opened the heavenly umbrella with trembling hands to see the effect after the update. The original form of the heavenly umbrella is still level 5 unchanged, but after this modification, the level of the heavenly umbrella's gun and sword forms has skyrocketed to level 15. The weight is still the same 2.3 kilograms, the attack speed is also 5, but the physical and magical attacks are far different from the spear form of level 15. The heavenly umbrella, sword form, physical attack 240, magical attack 265. The heavenly umbrella, gun form, physical attack 238, magical attack 210. Spears, swords, guns, weapons of different systems, the attributes will naturally be different. Even if they belong to the same system, the weapons will also have differences. For example, the sword system, although they are the same system, the heavy sword has the highest physical attack, the normal attack speed is 1, the slowest, the highest magical attack is the dagger, the normal attack speed is 5. The fastest attack speed is the light sword, usually 9. The other two are the great sword and the great saber. The great sword is more physical, but not as good as the heavy sword. The attack speed is a little faster, at 3. The great saber is more magical, not as good as the dagger. The attack speed is also faster, at 7. So the swordsman profession will choose weapons based on different habits and needs. For example, the two professions of the magic swordsman and the ghost swordsman will mainly use magical attacks and rarely choose the heavy sword as a weapon. The berserker and the swordsman will mainly use physical attacks. If the dagger does not have any special effects, they will not have time to think about it. The light sword system is a special existence. This weapon can only be used by swordsmen. The rules of the profession in the game explain that only swordsmen who pursue the extreme of the sword can grasp the speed of the light sword. Because of the advantage in attack speed, the sword light's attribute is similar to the Tai Dao, but the physical attack and magic attack are both slightly lower. The sword form attribute of Wu Tianji at this time is inclined to the Tai Dao system, but the attack speed is 5 like a dagger. Compared to Tai Dao of the same attribute, it is a level lower. But looking at the spear form of Wu Tianji, the physical attack is 290. It is the battle spear system with the strongest physical attack among all the weapons of the mage system, comparable to the heavy sword of the sword system. The speed of the battle spear is originally 1 like the heavy sword, but now it is 5. Wu Tianji's spear form is much stronger than other spears of the same attribute. Yushio roughly checked each form, did not find any errors after the improvement, immediately opened Lord Grimm's skill panel again. When reaching level 20, the skill points will be redistributed all over. Although Lord Grimm is a loose person, he still enjoys this treatment. But for other professions, after awakening at level 50, their skill points will be redistributed again. But for rogues, they will not. So from now on, they must use their skill points very carefully. But Yushio had experienced 10 years of glory and was known as an encyclopedia. He had already memorized the skills by heart. Now, he only needed to determine the skill combination plan for Lord Grimm. For rogues, the skills that could be learned were all laid out in front of him. Glory consisted of 6 different systems. Each system had 4 professions, a total of 24 professions. On average, each profession below level 20 would have about 5 skills. A total of 120 moves. This was the number of skills that rogues could learn. The number is quite large, but because they are all low-level skills, their power naturally cannot be compared to mid-level and high-level ultimate moves. However, these 120 low-level skills must also be carefully selected, because skill points are extremely limited. Although low-level skills do not require too many skill points, all are only under 30 points, but because there is the problem of upgrading the level of each skill, choosing how to combine them must also be carefully considered. Otherwise, even if the maximum skill points are only 5,000 points, learning all 120 skills to the maximum level is impossible. Yushio still hadn't decided on the final plan yet, so he could only learn a few skills that he thought were important first and increase their level. He would test them in combat and then review them. While checking the skill table to see if there were any missing skills, Yushio suddenly smelled the scent of tea and jumped up. He looked up and saw that Tang Ro was standing outside the counter holding a cup of tea. Yushio was stunned for a long time. His habit of staying up late had existed for a long time. In the past, at times like this, Su Mucheng would always help him make a cup of green tea, and that little girl always thought that people who stay up late needed to drink a lot of green tea. But now, he only saw Tang Rou pick up the cup of tea and take a sip. Yushi was sweating. It was obvious that he was fantasizing. He thought that Tang Rou would bring him tea like Su Mucheng. "What are you doing?" Tang Rou asked. "Looking at the skills." Yushio said. "Oh, I can learn that skill too." Tang Rou said. "Heavenly Strike and Dragon Fong?" "Yes. These two skills are very useful, but how to choose the level depends on each person's habits. You should get more familiar with these two skills first," Yushio instructed. "Okay." Tang Rou hugged the cup and left. The lingering scent of tea made Yushio absent-minded for a long time. Then he quietly lit a cigarette, continuing to experiment with his skills. At this moment, He saw Lord Grimm online on his friend list, and unprecedented confusion appeared in his heart. The Blood Archer event was something he had never expected. He's original plan when inviting Lord Grimm was actually just to let everyone work together to build friendship. He didn't even think about how Lord Grimm would be able to help while hunting the Blood Archer. This was a large-scale boss hunting activity for guilds. How much ability could one person use? The result of Lord Grimm's performance made everyone terrified, directly leading a few incompetent people that he himself didn't know who killed Blood Archer, and even turning 3 major guilds into a mess. The Zhongchao Hall's guild leader, Shi Qianzi, even sacrificed himself for the mission. He didn't know what the other 2 families' attitudes were towards Lord Grimm, but he personally admired this person even more. He had completely acknowledged that this person's level was above his own, at least in that situation. He definitely wouldn't have the ability to drag Blood Archer away. Even if he imitated Lord Grimm and took advantage of the conflict between the 3 major guilds. Furthermore, during the time they were dealing with that undead army, that incompetent team took the opportunity to push down Blood Archer. Their efficiency was indeed higher than their elite team. 80% of this was due to Jun Imo Zhao's command. However, while he was impressed, he still felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. Losses were just small matters. Losing face was the big deal. Because the person he brought was the one who ended up making his efforts in vain, he felt that Jun Imo Zhao's actions were truly unintentional and without any respect. He decided to make things clear to Jun Imo Zhao, opened Jun Imo Zhao's message window, and sent a message. "Brother, what you did today was a bit inappropriate, wasn't it?" Chapter 72, Eat the World. Jun Imo Zhao replied very quickly. "That's right, a little bit." "Damn it. So straightforward," he fluttered in the wind. How could he respond like this? Continuing to criticize would make him seem very ungenerous and very unmanly, but just like that, he felt so wrong that he couldn't digest it. In an instant, he felt like he had just been instantly killed. Luckily, they were chatting, so there was a way to express his feelings without saying anything. He quickly responded with a bunch of absolute silence, emoticons along with one sweating. "Do your best next time?" Yushio replied. He coughed up blood. This guy didn't take things to heart. That was true, that field boss had always been fought over like a swarm of bees. Being robbed and not convinced, then just take it back. Criticizing right or wrong is something only a bunch of idiots would do. Wait a minute, I'm not confused about not being able to steal Blood Archer. I'm upset because people don't give me face. The problem is that Lord Grimm was invited by me, but in the end, Blood Archer was eaten by him, and I was looked down upon. Looking at everyone's discussion in the guild channel, the annoyance with Lord Grimm is mainly due to this. As for the boss being stolen, that's a matter of using tricks. If this boss was eaten by Zheng Chao Tang or Mao Tu Ba Dao, although it's also frustrating, it's a different kind of frustration, not confusing. Perhaps I'm so confused right now, because Lord Grimm is different from the other 2. If it was the other 2, he could suppress his anger and take revenge, but this is Lord Grimm. How can I do it well? He scratched his head, so the problem was here. Yisho, what do you think about this? He stopped chatting with Lord Grimm and PM'd Yisho in the same guild. Lord Grimm, it seems we can't reach this person. Yisho said. Through the matter of Blood Archer, I can see his stance. Yisho said. What do you mean? The 3 major guilds were there. All of them wanted to borrow his strength, but he didn't help anyone. He led a group of people who didn't belong to any of the 3 guilds, and easily killed Blood Archer. Yisho said. What he means is, his abilities are so great, he doesn't need to join any guild. Lonnie said. I think it's more accurate to say the guild needs him, but he doesn't need the guild, Isho said. Lon, he was startled. To put it bluntly, he just wants to be a mercenary for all the guilds. Isho said. With his ability, doing so, it can be seen that his desire is very big. His demand is very high. Isho said. Professional gamer? Want to rely on this to make money? Lonnie said. Maybe, Isho said. But in the future, his business will have a time limit. Unsealing monsters, raising dungeon records, these things all have their limits. When that time comes, no one invites him. What should he do? Lonnie said. Go to another new area, Isho said. Lonnie sweated, forgetting about this matter. Then we can look in the old area, see if there was anyone like that before. Lonnie said. If there was someone like that, I'm afraid he would have been noticed long ago. Isho said. What exactly is this guy doing here? Lonnie scratched his head. I don't know. His strength is bottomless, his tricks are unfathomable, and he still hasn't changed his profession yet, Isho said. Then what attitude do you think we should take towards him? Lonnie said. Keep in touch, continue to observe. Isho said. We should continue to attract him. Before that it was just their speculation, right? Lonnie said. Yeah. Isho agreed, and added. Even if we can't attract him, building a good relationship with him can at least take a place in his heart. Now it feels like we're flattering him, Lonnie sighed. Isho couldn't say anything either. No matter how good an expert is, the guild usually attracts him to take advantage of them. But what about this Lord Grim guy? Why does it feel like everyone is surrounding him, waiting for him to give them alms? Something must be wrong. Lonnie's already cleared up his doubts, took 2 deep breaths, and continued to contact Lord Grim. Brother, are you going to the dungeon at 12 o'clock? Lonnie asked. The dungeon refresh rate was at 12 o'clock. Everyone had to start getting busy. Let's talk about it later, Isho said. Let's go together. Lonnie invited. No need. Isho was sweating. This guy had some determination. He was robbed of the boss by me and still didn't give up and drag him along. Isho's act of stealing the boss was really showing his attitude. He didn't want to be dragged back and forth by the 3 big guilds, just desperately confessing to him like this, even if he persisted and refused after a long time. This feeling would be hard to dissipate. Brother, you're too polite, Lonnie said. I made an appointment with someone else. Facing Lonnie, who was always consistent, Isho could only find an excuse. Who? Lonnie suddenly became alert. Could it be that a guild had arrived before him? Friend, Isho said. Lonnie wanted to ask, which friend, but felt that he was nosy too much, so he had no choice but to say, then let's go next time when we have a chance. Next time? Next time. Yushu replied perfunctorily. Lonnie angrily received the message, and as soon as he received the message, he suddenly thought of something else. Bro, you have to help me unmask the dwarf merchant. The dwarf merchant was the wild boss in the Frost Forest, and he still hadn't shown up yet. I'll make an appointment with someone else, Yusho said. So it turned out that what he said just now was a fake. This guy really didn't bother to hide anything when he spoke. Lonnie coughed up blood and casually asked, Who? Overbearing scheme. Fuck. Lonnie slammed his hand on the keyboard. It's confusing. What the hell is it? Look, someone else has taken advantage of it. Lonnie regretted his hesitation, looking at the chat window, not knowing how to respond. Lord Grim was indeed like what Isho and him had analyzed, wanting to eat all the guilds. But Overbearing Scheme was also really generous. He was still confused, but the other person had already overlooked the problem and grabbed Lord Grim to take advantage of it. Sigh. Lonnie sighed, finally maintaining his composure, sending a reply message. Then I won't be lenient when the time comes. That's right. No need to be considerate, Isho said. This brother, in the future, when it comes to wild map boss or dungeon records, can I pay first? Lonnie said. We'll think about it later. At my level, I can't catch up with everyone, Isho said. Then you should quickly level up. Lonnie realized that this was also a problem. He is currently 24. Tonight, after running a few dungeons, he will definitely be level 25. Lord Grim is still level 21. The level gap is getting further and further. By then, they will all be challenging level 30 dungeons. This guy is still working hard at level 20 dungeons. Then he will erase all the records they worked so hard to record. Lonnie and the others won't be able to come back even if they want to. 2 level. Chapter 73, Sand Throwing Technique. The reactions of the 3 major guilds were actually beyond Yisho's expectations. Their expressions were quite open and mature. as expected of a major guild that had been in business for many years and was still strong. The tyrannical scheme reacted the fastest. Not long after the matter of Blood Archer had passed, Yu Weiyong had already sent a message, not mentioning that matter at all, directly inviting them to kill the dwarf merchant together. The treatment was easy to discuss, but the top condition was of course to ensure that the tyrannical scheme could take over the dwarf merchant's head. Yi Xiu had no objections. He also had a need for the dwarf merchant, originally planning to rely on the trading market. Now that there was an opportunity, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Wu Tianji wanted to upgrade. The scope of improvement was really too wide. He was already level 21. Wu Tianji had not yet reached level 15. Fortunately, this was a silver weapon. Otherwise, he would have fallen behind a bit. Mutu Ba Dao reacted quickly. Lan Shigu was just a bit slower. Through Lan He's words, Yi Xiu could see his confusion. Yi Xiu understood this very well. It was just a pity that at this moment his emotions were fluctuating. The result was that he could only miss the opportunity. As for Zhong Qiaotang, Yi Xiu had no news from the other side. Zhong Qiaotang's people had never contacted him. Wanted to kill the dwarf merchant, but this boss would randomly refresh. There was no specific time. But after so many years, the players have long been accustomed to dealing with this. No matter what, they should do it. When they discover a wild boss, they will go there. So as soon as 12 o'clock arrived, everyone still invited each other to go and clear the map as usual. Yi Xiu received a message from Tianqi, asking if they wanted to go to the Frost Forest. The big boss expert took the initiative to call them to kill the Blood Archer, making everyone really excited. Feeling that the relationship with the big boss expert was getting closer and closer, as soon as 12 o'clock arrived, the number of times to clear the dungeon was back. They quickly took the initiative to contact him. Are you short of people? Yi Xiu asked. 4 short of 1. Tianqi said. I'll be right there. After Yi Xiu finished speaking, the dungeon was a daily exercise, the main source of experience and economy. Even if Tianqi and the others didn't invite him, Yi Xiu would still join a wild team. With these people, at least when he has a need, he can choose first. This is not something that is easy to come by. After sending Lord Grimm to the Frost Forest, Yi Xiu unexpectedly saw that rookie hooligan's steamed bun invasion. Why is it you? Yi Xiu was puzzled. He glanced around, but Yu Zhoumian was not there. That little brat who had not yet grown enough hair was still resentful towards him. Yi Xiu did not know. He had not yet made friends with Yu Zhoumian. It's me, following you big brothers to learn. Steamed bun invasion was extremely modest. Yi Xiu knew that although this guy was just a newbie to glory, his operations were very proficient. Yu Zhoumian played all day and has already logged out, and Xin Yu's little sister can't play all night. Tianqi explained. Sai, I can't play tomorrow either. Mu Yunshin said regretfully. What about Big Brother Expert? Tianqi took the opportunity to ask Yi Xiu about his work and rest schedule. From the past 3 days, it could be seen that the Big Boss Expert stayed up all night every day. I usually play at night. Yi Xiu replied with a smile. After speaking, they formed a team, and the 5 of them started to fight the dungeon. Although this steamed bun invasion was only a newcomer, he was the highest level among the 5, already 23. Everyone asked and found out that he had been playing like crazy the moment he started playing. On the day the area opened, he played for 24 hours straight without a break. On the second day, he casually took a nap and woke up to continue fighting. From the day the area opened until now, there were only 48 hours. He only ate and slept for a total of about 6 hours, and spent 42 hours playing the game. He could basically compare to the big guilds competing for the top. Everyone sighed, opening monsters to level up. Yi Xiu still held the command as usual. Everything was going really smoothly. After throwing sand, don't immediately rush forward to attack. This is for fighting monsters. It's still usable. If it's PK, experienced players will use horizontal sweeps or skills that can control the front. Yi Xiu also took some time to instruct Steamed Bun Invasion. Then what should we do? Steamed Bun Invasion humbly asked for advice. Idiot, circle around to the back. The opponent can't see it anyway. Tianqi and the others also discussed it with the Tintung group. Circling around to the back is also a method. Yi Xiu did not object to Tianqi's teaching right away. However, this also requires time and will waste a few seconds of this hard-won blindness. Not using sand throw as the starting move is really the best method, but using sand throw while attacking. During the fight, suddenly use sand throw to launch a sneak attack. At the same time, you must also ensure that even if you can't blind, you still have other options. You mean you shouldn't rely too much on the blind state to prepare your attack? Steamed Bun Invasion said. That's right. Attacking after blinding the opponent with sand throw is an old trick. Nowadays no one but newbies use it anymore, and only newbies can get hit by it. Yisho said. Then what if it's a sneak attack at the beginning? Can you use sand throw? Steamed Bun Invasion asked. This can. Yisho answered with some hesitation. It was really the Yangtze River that pushed the previous wave. Now even the thoughts of a rookie were already this despicable. But the next move can't rely too much on the blind state, right? Steamed Bun Invasion summarized the weak points. That's right, Yisho said. Understood. Steamed Bun Invasion consciously learned a move, extremely satisfied. Then he started practicing, always looking for opportunities to use sand throw while fighting monsters. NPC monsters were very stupid, unlike players who would turn their heads and avoid such shameless fighting methods. So Steamed Bun Invasion's use of sand throw was considered not bad. Big Brother Expert, when will you lead us to kill the dwarf merchant? Tianchi and the others asked. These guys were actually quite greedy. That matter, I've already agreed to help Tyrannical Scheme kill it. Yisho said. Tyrannic schemes. The Tianchi people were immediately upset. You want to join them? No. Then, just help them kill the dwarf merchant. Yisho said. Mercenary? Tianchi asked. They were not unfamiliar with this. Team activities like dungeon fighting would also have people accepting mercenaries, appearing a lot in the activities of middle and low-level guilds. Because the strength of middle and low-level guilds was not enough, there would be some dungeons that could not be beaten. In order to get equipment to increase their level, sometimes they would ask a few experts to come and help. But this kind of mercenary thing was hard to appear in the three big guilds. How could such a big guild not have experts? What kind of dungeon could they not beat? What kind of boss could they not beat? Their team strength was the top in the game. If even they could not deal with it, then there was basically no mercenary that could help. But now, the big boss expert was actually going to fight for all three big guilds. This was not like selling himself. It felt like a superstar running around, a hot-handed artist who was invited to the stage for a fee. Tianchi and the others were really envious and jealous. Thinking about his original intention of luring the master to the Yulin Guild, he was truly embarrassed. Even the three major guilds had to spend money to invite people to the stage. Their Yulin Guild was ranked below 50th in the Divine Domain. Even giving up the position of guild leader to the master was not enough. While chatting while playing, a notification message flashed. Yisho opened it. It was from Yi Wei Yang. The dwarf merchant has appeared. In the dungeon. Yisho regretted. Same. Everyone is in the dungeon. I'll contact you later. Yi Wei Yang said. Chapter 74. Grasping the information. 12 o'clock. Although not all the players were above level 20, the majority were still playing the dungeon. The new area had only been open for 3 days, and everyone was still maintaining a state of frantic leveling. As for the players under 20, who had not yet left the novice village, the matter of the Frost Forest had nothing to do with them. When the dwarf merchant was discovered, who discovered it first, and how many players discovered it in the end, no one knew. In general, at that time, the tyrannical scheme had received the news and immediately reported it to the guild members. Those who were not playing the dungeon had already run away, while those who were still playing the dungeon had sped up their progress. Yisho was naturally also informed. The dwarf merchant has been updated. Let's hurry up and play it. I have to go there quickly. Yisho also commanded the team to speed up. Tianchi and the others were full of admiration and did not delay in their actions. They quickly cleared the dungeon under Yisho's command and finished the Ice Frost Camp in 28 minutes. After leaving the dungeon, Yisho contacted Yi Wei Yang, and they had already cleared the dungeon. They were now running towards the location where the dwarf merchant usually appeared. After Yisho asked for the location, he immediately let Lord Grim run at full speed. Tianchi expressed that they wanted to watch the excitement, and Yisho did not stop them. The dense forest area of the Ice Frost Jungle was the dungeon, and the large, sparsely populated area surrounding it was the leveling area. Along the way, Yishio saw quite a few players running in the same direction as Lord Grimm. After all, the Frost Forest couldn't be compared to the Bone Maiden Land. This place had a lot more people. Those who had ambitions for the Wild Boss weren't just the 3 big guilds. Quite a few guilds were also actively participating in this activity, and there was no shortage of people who wanted to make achievements. After all, the time when the 3 big guilds were blocking each other was always a good opportunity to take advantage of. The one who knew how to take advantage of this wasn't just Yishio. I saw you. While running, he suddenly received a message. Yishio saw that it was Yi Wei-yong. Looking left and right, he really saw this guy. Yi Wei-yong sent an invitation. After Jun Mo Xiao had left Tianqi's team after exiting the dungeon, Yishio accepted the invitation and entered the team to take a look. This was obviously the main team of Overbearing Scheme. The team leader was their guild leader, Yi Du-han-tan. Welcome Jun Mo Xiao. Yi Wei-yong typed in the team channel, sending out a applause icon. Below was a group of people clapping their hands in unison. Yishio also became serious, replying with a bowing greeting icon. The two sides gathered, directly communicating through voice. So many people. Yishio said. Yeah, this time it's not just the 3 big guilds. There are also a lot of people coming to join in the fun. Apart from Zhongsao Hall and Lanchi Pavilion, are there any other highly competitive guilds? Yishio asked. Zhaowang Dynasty, Samsara, Yinyu Lu, Treading the Void, 100 Flower Valley, Howling Mountain Villa, 301 Degrees. Alright. Yishio discovered that Yi Wei-yong had a tendency to talk non-stop. It's just a dwarf merchant. There are really too many people with the ability to kill it. Yi Wei-yong said. The situation is so complicated. What do you think is the most crucial point, Lord Grimm? Hatred. Yishio scratched the right spot. Whoever can get the dwarf's stable hatred will gain the initiative. But you also know, pulling its hatred is equivalent to pulling all the hatred of all the players here. Yishio said. So the person pulling the hatred cannot be just one person. Yishio said. It can't be just one? That's right. Forming a violent DPS team, you have to control the attack power emitted, ensuring that no matter when, where, or who, as long as they hear the command, they can immediately OT. Yishio said. How much do you like violent teams? Yi Wei-yong teased. Then a lot of people will die, right? Yishio said. If we take full advantage of the terrain of the forest, not many will die. Yishio said. What should we do specifically? Yi Du-han-dan asked. Give me 5 DPS with purple weapons above level 20. No problem. Yishio said. No problem. Everyone in this team has purple weapons. Yi Du-han-dan said. My weapon is orange. Yi Wei-yong boasted. Please respect yourself, priest. Yishio said. What jobs do you want? Yi Du-han-dan asked. All ranged attacks are best. Yishio said. I'll call someone. Yi Du-han-dan said. Obviously his team couldn't bring all 5 ranged attackers. Someone come right away. Yi Du-han-dan said after making the contact. Weapon information. Wait. Yi Du-han-dan went to collect information again, then sent it over one by one. The archer class was completely a ranged class. In addition, the mage and ghost swordsman classes also had some ranged attack capabilities. The 5 people that Yi Du-han-dan summoned, 3 were archers, respectively a marksman, a gunnery master, and a gunpowder expert. The remaining 2 were elemental mages and demon swordsmen, their equipment suited to their professions, along with purple weapons. Yishio looked around and asked, what are their skill levels? Yi Du-han-dan ran off to ask again, and in a moment, he had briefly listed the 5 people's skills. Do you have? Second brother, if you want to know anything, please tell me at once. Yi Du-han-dan's face was filled with tears. He was the guild leader, running back and forth like a secretary. How could this be possible? Mainly, I want to know the attack capabilities of these 5 people. Yishio said. You should have told them earlier. Wouldn't they know right away if I asked them to look at their personal information? Yi Du-han-dan cried. Attack ability, not attack power. What special effects does the weapon have? Does the equipment have auxiliary skills? How much damage does the skill do? Are these on the personal page? Yishio said. Brother, I was wrong. Yi Du-han-dan ran off with tears streaming down his face. After understanding the equipment, Yishio said, now that you understand these things, is personal information still needed? No need. Yidu Handan had no idea if these words were a question or a rhetorical question, so he could only ask back. 5 people, quickly get to your positions. Yi Xiu said. You take over this DPS team, what about us? Yidu Handan asked. Our team is responsible for attracting hatred. You guys are the main DPS team, Yi Xiu said. Yidu Handan cried. He was like a newbie. What should I do? What should I do? Look, dwarf merchant. Yi Xiu asked for news along the way. Everyone's characters continued to move forward, and by this time they had arrived. They saw a very lively scene in the forest, with players shouting and capturing the dwarf merchant. This dwarf merchant's entire body was also green, but its face was not as cunning as the dwarves in the forest or in the dungeon. This one looked extremely kind. Carrying a huge bag on its back, it was running away in the forest, frequently reaching into the bag behind him, taking out a prop and throwing it away. Firecrackers, grenades, fire bottles, bricks, wine bottles. There was everything. Looking at the situation, it could be seen that the dwarf merchant had been discovered by the players not long ago. At least at this time, no effective encirclement had been formed yet. The dwarf merchant led the entire team, muttering a language that the players could not understand. After throwing out a fire bottle that sparked a sea of fire, the dwarf merchant gently grabbed a tree branch and flew up. A sword light flashed through the dimly lit forest. The sword energy made the dry leaves on the ground flutter. The dwarf merchant who was flying in the air was hit by this precise sword strike, falling to the ground. Swordsman's skill, draw sword slash. Behind the tree appeared a person, Lam Ha. Chapter 75, The Robber Monster is completely defeated. Lan He is truly considered a rare expert. This move of pulling out the sword slash is precise and on point. Before the person arrives, the sword arrives first, in mid-air, giving the dwarf merchant a beautiful aerial pursuit. If it were Tian Chi and the others, it would be very difficult to strike out with a sword like this. Lan He continued to use the 3-section slash, which is a swordsman's skill of attacking and moving at the same time. The character quickly glides up. Before the dwarf could completely fall to the ground, he was slashed by 3 sword lights. 3 streams of blood splattered everywhere. Diagonally stabbed. Lan He swung his sword again, preparing to stab the dwarf merchant in mid-air, when suddenly a strangely shaped battle spear appeared beside him. Lam Ha felt nervous when he saw that strange spear. He turned his gaze to see, and sure enough, it was Lord Grimm. A sword and a spear simultaneously stabbed towards the dwarf merchant. The sword was fast, the spear was long. Who would arrive first? Was it me? Lan He felt that the moment his sword tip stabbed in was also the moment Jun Mo Zhao's sharp spearhead had just hit. The dwarf was hit by that attack, so it was hooked higher than before. The spear of war stabbed forward. The dwarf merchant was immediately pulled into a semicircle, directly thrown down by Jun Mo Zhao beside him. Yuan Wushan. The skills of both people hit the dwarf merchant. Unfortunately, Jun Mo Zhao used a skill that was a catch type. The dwarf merchant had just been thrown down. He had already blocked in front of Lan He. Jun Mo Zhao's face was right before his eyes, but the character's eyes were always so empty. Lan He didn't know what Jun Mo Zhao was thinking at this moment. He only knew that he was very calm, not hesitating at all, not the slightest hesitation. Slashing horizontally towards Jun Mo Zhao. Jun Mo Zhao jumped high backwards to avoid this sword strike, jumping to the back of the dwarf merchant who was lying on the ground. Suddenly using the heavenly strike to hook the dwarf merchant, followed by the falling flower palm move bang on the dwarf merchant. The dwarf merchant flew out, stabbing towards Lan He. Too fast. Now that he was fighting against Lord Grimm himself, Lan He finally experienced how fast this person's movements were. When using the heavenly strike, he had already jumped back. He could still accurately hook the dwarf merchant who was falling to the ground in the air. The falling flower palm move that followed was even more bizarre. At that time, the dwarf merchant had already been hooked high up. If he was still in a state of falling to the ground, the falling flower palm would not be able to achieve the effect of sweeping the ground. Sweeping the ground is a type of aerial attack from Glory. It is mainly aimed at the target that is falling to the ground. Falling flower palm is a skill that attacks straight forward. If the target falls to the ground, it cannot be used. First, he used a heavenly strike, which was to let the dwarf merchant who was falling to the ground enter a state of floating in the air, so that he could use the falling flower palm to hit it. In Lan He's eyes, he only felt that the fact that Lord Grimm jumped back to use Heavenly Strike and then Falling Flower Palm was incredibly fast. He originally didn't see clearly whether he could stab upwards or not. or whether he could hit with a bang, but the dwarf merchant had already flown to his side. After all, Lan He's strength was not ordinary. When the dwarf merchant was about to collide with him, he immediately rushed out to block the attack. The dwarf ghost collided with the sword. Lan He was pushed back a step, but he was not knocked to the ground by this collision. The focus at this moment was not on dealing with Lord Grimm, but on snatching the dwarf merchant. Lan He's thinking was also extremely clear, but he did not have any skills that could grab the dwarf ghost and throw him aside, widening the distance with Lord Grimm like Yuan Wukuan. Lan He could only increase the damage, setting up hatred points so that the dwarf merchant would automatically turn towards him. Up and down, Silverlight Falling Ring. Unfortunately, the swordsman at this moment was also a profession that did not have any ground-sweeping skills. As a result, he had just jumped up and had not yet drawn his sword when he saw a sword light swinging towards him. The speed could not compare to Lan He's, but it was more than domineering. Lan He only saw a stream of blood spurting out from his chest, being slashed, and flying back into the air. There was only one thought in his mind: this can't be. He witnessed it with his own eyes. When Junimo Sha used the knife slash, he didn't change the weapon in his pocket, but directly pulled out a sharp blade from the end of that strange spear. The sword light flashed and disappeared. When Lan He looked back, the sword in Junimo Zhao's hand was gone. Could it be that he was seeing things? Lan He believed that he hadn't seen wrongly, but he had absolutely no idea what had happened in that blink of an eye. Lan He didn't fall. When he fell to the ground, he immediately rolled over, using the body-bearing technique to avoid falling to the ground. At this moment, he was a distance away from the dwarf merchant. Lan He hurriedly ran forward. Boom. A loud boom sounded. Lan He was sent flying again. Damn it. Lan He cursed inwardly. This time it was his own mistake, only focusing on approaching the dwarf merchant, forgetting that when the boss fell to the ground, it would create a shockwave that would cause the ground to shake. Otherwise, when he fell, he would be immediately surrounded, let alone stand up. The shockwave sent Lan He flying, but he still avoided it. Seeing Junimo Sha skillfully dodging the wave, he had already rushed in front of the dwarf merchant, directly using a throw move to throw the dwarf merchant further away. On the other side, several players from the overbearing scheme had simultaneously advanced. In that short battle for the boss, Lan He had completely lost. But he knew it was not over yet. The people here, including the Lanshi Pavilion, would absolutely not let the overbearing scheme casually kill the dwarf merchant. You haven't arrived yet? After Yishio controlled Lord Grimm to rush into the middle of the overbearing scheme, after punching the dwarf merchant a few times to stabilize his hatred, he opened his mouth to ask a question. It's almost there. Yidu Handan was even more anxious than Yishio. The dwarf merchant had already arrived, and the formation Yishio needed had yet to arrive. In his team, only the gunpowder expert and elemental mage met Yishio's requirements, and they were increasing damage with the dwarf merchant under Yishio's command. Most of the players had also rushed over here, but seeing that the dwarf merchant had fallen into the hands of overbearing scheme, many people hesitated slightly. The thought was not to let the boss go, but to hope that there would be a leader to charge in. After all, in the hearts of every player, they did not want to directly conflict with the overbearing scheme. However, not all players were afraid of the overbearing scheme. The people of the Blue Stream Pavilion were absolutely not afraid. The Blood Archer incident was clearly before their eyes. The hesitation of the three houses had ruined the matter. They were always worried about the first and then afraid. At this moment, Lan He was extremely decisive. Without thinking, he took the lead to charge. The players of the Blue Stream Pavilion behind him were also more than 10 people, not much different from the number of people of the overbearing scheme. Disperse. Yushio gave an order, and the people of the Night Cold Pool scattered in all directions according to the positions he had arranged. The dwarf merchant was sent flying by Lord Grimm's falling flower palm once again. The two gunpowder experts and the elemental mages ran to the left and right, hiding behind trees. As soon as the skills freeze time ended, they would suddenly raise their heads and throw attacks at the dwarf merchant. Yidu Hantan led a group of melee fighters, not getting close to attack, only paying attention to the moving position. As soon as the dwarf merchant ran to a tree, behind the tree trunk, someone would suddenly raise their heads and punch or swing a knife. Lan He opened his mouth wide. He had never seen this kind of way to fight a boss before. Chapter 76, Controlling the Boss's Movement. In the woods, Lan He could only see the dwarf merchant, who was carrying a large bag while holding his but chasing after Lord Grimm. The other members of the overbearing schemes were now gathered in all directions, hiding behind the trees, successfully shooting at them. This dwarf merchant was really something. When facing normal players, he would jump and jump, taking things out of his bag and throwing them at others. How could he be so careless when facing Lord Grim? He had just thrown a grenade, but was knocked back by Lord Grim in midair, exploding right on top of his head. How stupid. What kind of timed grenade did he use? You have to use a grenade to detonate it. Even so, to be able to accurately hit the thrown grenade back on the dwarf merchant's head, Lord Grim not only fast, but also very precise. Lonhi on this side was madly chasing after him, and was extremely emotional. After all, Lord Grim was leading the dwarf merchant to fight and run. His speed was not at its full potential. Lonhi brought people along to catch up very quickly. Behind the people of Lanshigu, there were all kinds of players following closely, thinking of themselves as sparrows. How could Lonhi not know what kind of people were behind him? But the cruel lesson of the blood archer battle was still there. If he did not advance, he would leave room for the tyrannical scheme to sneak in. Tian Qing, you go ahead and stop him, Lonhi said. Why me? Tian Qing was upset. You are a battle mage. If you don't go, who will? With the illusory mark increasing his status, the speed of the mage increased by a level. And Xiaohai. The Xiaohai that Tian Qing mentioned was also a combat mage. Your technique is good. Lonhi was not afraid of hurting Xiaohai. Tian Qing's level was something that was recognized. In that guy's eyes, my technique is just like floating clouds. Tian Qing said. You've only fought him a few times, huh? Lonhi said. I don't believe you don't recognize his terrifying movements. Tian Qing said. All right, what the hell are you trying to stop me for? I've already caught up. Lei Ming Dian Guang sneered. While these two were arguing, the dwarf merchant had already entered his sights. Thunderclap Lightning strode forward and cast the Flame Shockwave spell. It was not easy for a mage to hit the target. He had to be familiar with the release time of the spell, accurately judge the direction and speed of the target, and carefully calculate the target's location. Thunderclap Lightning was an expert, and these aspects were not bad at all. The range of the Flame Shockwave was large, so the hit rate would be high. At this time, he accurately chose the location to cast the spell 3 times the size of his body in front of the dwarf merchant, and the attack time bar appeared. Gunpowder. At this time, Yusho sent a message from the team. The team channel was completely clear. Everyone was afraid of affecting Yusho's command. The gunpowder expert saw him and did not say much. The light attribute bullet had long been loaded. He raised his gun and fired. The bullet had the attribute of electric flashing light, emitting a rumbling sound, instantly shooting down on the dwarf merchant. The dwarf merchant was shocked. His whole body trembled. After being stunned for a moment, he suddenly ran towards a tree on the left. Fate. Lei Ming Dian Guang's eyes widened. He had already finished chanting. Seeing that a fiery shockwave could shoot the dwarf merchant into the sky, this perfect move could help them gain 2 seconds. Who would have thought that this stupid dwarf merchant would suddenly change his target of hatred? Running towards the other side, the fiery shockwave was sublimating fiercely, but it didn't hit anyone. Do you have any skills? Do you know how to play? At the crucial moment, you rookie, OT. Lei Ming Dian Guang was so angry that he stomped his feet, scolding the tree on the other side. You're so noisy. A rogue player in Lanshigu said a sentence, then raised his hand and threw a brick. Although throwing a brick would reduce all the effects of brick by half, but this time it was thrown towards the back of the running dwarf's head, the chance was increased by half. Therefore, the chance of causing stunning was also very high. It could buy some time. Who would have thought that the brick flew into the air and suddenly heard a gunshot? Bang, the brick shattered. A pile of brick fragments fell down. The rogue player also widened his eyes and opened his mouth. Fuck. The rogue player exclaimed. Did you see a ghost? Are you fooling each other? Does the overbearing scheme have such an expert? No one answered him. Everyone's eyes were focused on the strange thing in Junimo Zhao's hand. It was emitting gunpowder smoke. Pay attention to Junimo Zhao's weapon. Lonhi said to everyone. Something strange. Shape. No, Lonhi couldn't find the words to describe it for a moment. First catch the dwarf merchant, then talk about it later. Someone said. Although the 2 people who went forward to throw skills to block the dwarf merchant failed, the players from Lanshigu got closer and closer to the dwarf merchant. Who would have thought that right when the dwarf merchant ran to that tree, the person who appeared was not a gunpowder expert but a judo master, grabbing the dwarf merchant and throwing it to Junimo Xie. Judo masters were players who specialized in catching. All kinds of effects were increased. This throw was even faster than Junimo Xie's usual. The players from Lan Shigu ran the wrong way many times. All of them were boiling with anger. As a result, Junemo Xie had already welcomed the boss on the other side, throwing 2 or 3 attacks that had already drawn back the dwarf merchant's hatred. It was Yuan Wukuan and Quang Nim again. In the blink of an eye, the distance between the dwarf merchant and the players of Lan Shigu was getting longer and longer. Wait a minute. He saw through the trick. The OT just now, it probably wasn't an accident, it was their arrangement, it was intentional. He said. What did you say? Everyone was startled. They want to use that method, actively control the dwarf's movement, then avoid our pursuit, and take the opportunity to capture the dwarf merchant. He said. How can this be done? Everyone was stunned. The truth is right before our eyes. He said. It's Junemo Xiao, it's all under his command. Lonnie said. What should we do now? Someone asked. Let's split up in a group and destroy their arrangement. Lonnie said. That group probably won't take advantage of the situation, right? He looked behind him worriedly. That bunch of rabble won't have any achievements. Lonnie said. Why haven't we seen the Zhong Chaotang people coming yet? He said. That trash XA Qianzi is always playing dirty tricks. We have to be careful with this. Where are our people? Why haven't they arrived yet? Lanhe was anxious. Their Lanshi pavilion couldn't possibly only have a dozen or so people like them. The Zhong Chaotang people are here. At this moment, he suddenly blurted out such a sentence. Lanhe looked ahead, and sure enough, in the opposite forest, there was a group of silhouettes moving around. The name on top of his head couldn't be seen clearly, but with his many years of experience, Lanhe instantly guessed that it was the Zhong Chaotang ID. They're blocking the retreat. He said. That trash XA Qianzi must have received information from an insider. Lanhe disdained. While they're blocking Lord Grim, we'll snatch the boss back. He said. Go. Lanhe shouted. Chapter 77, Directly Flying Over. After that, people from Lan Shiga chased over, and in front, people from Zhang Chao Hall suddenly appeared. The tyrannical scheme immediately fell into a dire situation of being surrounded on both sides. Elemental. Yushio hurriedly shouted. The elemental mage hastily threw a fire explosion altar over, and once again, the dwarf merchant ran towards the elemental mage without a doubt. It was indeed intentional. He could completely confirm it. Preparing to run east to escape the pincer attack? Yushio guessed. East. Lanhe led the team to run east, preparing to take the lead. If you meet someone from the tyrannical scheme, don't give in at all. Lanhe ordered. Absolutely not. Everyone expressed their attitude in unison. The team ran towards the cave, all paying attention to behind each tree, hoping to catch a tyrannical scheme to warm up. The result was that all along the way, they only caught some ordinary little monsters, not even a single player from the overbearing scheme. Encountering someone from the overbearing scheme appearing randomly was even more unrealistic than the dwarf merchant. The Blue Creek Pavilion changed direction, and the Zhangcao Hall was not willing to be outdone, also running east like the Blue Creek Pavilion. Both of these houses changed direction. Yuzhou was immediately stunned. Isn't this a diversion to attack the west? Lanhe also felt that he couldn't be careless. You bring a few people to circle around to the west. Yuzhou hurriedly chose a few players. The people from the Blue Creek Pavilion split into 2 paths, one blocking the east, the other preparing to block the west. The Zhangcao Hall immediately acted the same, dividing into a group and running west. People who didn't know anything would think that these 2 houses were definitely on the same side. But in reality, it was not true at all. The 2 families only wished that the opponent family had made a mistake in their judgment. The dwarf merchant who was running towards the elemental mage was suddenly hit by a retreat from behind the tree. Sliding a distance, then a gunshot rang out. The dwarf merchant hesitated and turned around again. It was indeed a feint attack. The players from the Blue Stream Pavilion and the Central Grass Hall all thought the same thing when they saw this scene, and they also saw the dwarf merchant running towards the Lord Grim standing in front. Damn it! No one expected that the person who held grudges after OT would be Lord Grim, and this guy was still determined to run towards the north, although the Central Grass Hall had just divided his troops to the east and west. It was still too late to gather and intercept the enemy. If they continued to run like this, wouldn't they be hitting an iron wall? What is he planning to do? The players were all pondering Lord Grim's thoughts. He will probably change his route again, right? Some people thought. But Zhong Chaotang wondered about this problem even more seriously than anything else. Should they move forward to block, east or west, or stand still and wait? In the end, Xatn2 had to divide his people into 3 groups. He couldn't help but guard against each group. There was no other way. The other side wanted to OT then OT. Wherever they wanted the dwarf merchant to go, they could only guard against all 3 directions. Which side could it be? Everyone held such doubts and watched the dwarf merchant run. In the end, they did not see any changes. They only saw Lord Grimm leading the dwarf merchant flying straight towards the Zhongsao Hall who was blocking them. There were more than 10 people in the Zhongsao Hall. They immediately spread out into a fan shape and rushed over. The archer system players who could attack from a distance also started to draw their sniper rifles. The mages started to cast spells. Lord Grimm suddenly jumped up. The archers hurriedly adjusted the crosshairs. In the end, they saw Lord Grimm turn 180 degrees in the air, turning his butt towards them. But the archers also did not care. The cursors were all quickly aimed and shot. A gunshot rang out. The archers admired in their hearts who was so fast to aim. The action was too fierce. Then they saw Lord Grimm swooping towards the horizon. Fuck, he's a flying gun. The archers cried out in fear. As the recoil of the flying gun grew stronger, it flew faster. The rifle Lord Grimm used this time was at least superior. The archers raised their guns and fired bang bang. But in the end, they didn't hit anyone. The moving target was too fast. It was impossible to hold. Lord Grimm's but flew to the top of their heads in the blink of an eye. Then the group only saw Lord Grimm turn around. A sharp light flashed. Lord Grimm drew his sword in midair. Silver light falling ring. Dodge quickly. The swordsman player reminded. Their guess was correct. A silver light descended from the sky. It was indeed the swordsman's silver light falling ring skill. These 10 or so people from the central grass hall were not ordinary. They all jumped up. The silver light fell to the ground, creating a small circle of light waves. The 10 or so people jumped out of the circle again. Go! Someone let out a loud roar. After the light disappeared, more than 10 people immediately rushed over. June Grimm waved the heavenly umbrella. The surface of the umbrella was upside down, but it did not maintain its battle spear shape. The part of the umbrella that was upside down suddenly folded back a third. The upper 2/3 curved down, like a scythe. At the same time, the umbrella handle suddenly retracted, as if a sharp sword was being pulled out. But after pulling out 2/3, it stopped, and in the end, it only extended the umbrella handle a bit more. All of these changes happened in the blink of an eye. The surrounding players only felt dizzy. June Grimm's weapon had changed shape. At first glance, it looked like nothing but the shape of this weapon. With a wave of his hand, the heavenly umbrella drew a 360-degree circle on the ground, surrounding him. Right when the starting point connected with the ending point, the circle suddenly flashed with a deep blue light. Fuck! Ascension formation! A player shouted. The crowd surrounding them couldn't avoid it this time. The deep blue circle suddenly spread out. A pale blue light column suddenly rose. More than 10 players happened to step on the circle's range, couldn't avoid it in time, and were thrown into the air by the blue light. The exorcist skill was a holy order skill, Ascension Formation. The skill's effect was to cause the players within the Ascension Formation's range to be damaged by magic and suspended in the air. When the crowd finished floating, they fell to the ground like dumplings. Lord Grimm had already escaped their encirclement. Some people were still trying to attack Lord Grimm while in the air, but attacking while in a floating state required a view facing each other. Wanting to find the right direction to attack when both the enemy and the player were constantly moving was not a simple operation. Not everyone could do it. In the end, everyone could only attack without any threat. After falling, most of them successfully performed the action of bearing the body, showing the outstanding quality of the Zhang Chaotang players. As a result, when the fallen people all stood up, they saw a grenade lying right in the middle of them. With a bang, more than 10 people were blown up to the left and right. Amidst the billowing smoke of the bombs, the dwarf merchant with his bag leisurely walked past the group. Everyone's faces were filled with tears. The dwarf merchant's hatred could not be on them. The mine was not thrown at them. But it was clear that Lord Grimm deliberately lured the dwarf merchant to throw it in this direction. Why did this dwarf merchant show such respect? Couldn't you just throw bricks just now? Why do you insist on throwing grenades with a wide range of damage? Chapter 78. Forced to give up. The more than 10 people who had just fallen left and right had not yet adjusted their mood. When they saw the more than 10 players hiding behind the trees of the overbearing scheme moving, appearing and disappearing as they advanced. When they got closer, they took advantage of the situation, throwing some mines and some spells. Then they did not bother to waste any more time, continuing to chase after the dwarf merchant. After all, This was the real purpose of the group gathering here. Continuing to fall left and right made the other 10 people depressed. While they were adjusting their mood again, the group of people from the Blue Stream Pavilion ran over screaming, "Useless. Really too useless." Lamha did not spare any mercy and strongly condemned these competitors, then also controlled his underlings to take advantage of the situation, slashing with 2 swords and throwing a few spells. Pity these more than 10 people who were all rolled back and forth. Some of them were unlucky. They looked quite attractive to attack, so they were taken advantage of a lot, directly grunting and dying. XATN2 was so angry, the boss could not stop them. As a result, they were even taken advantage of, directly sending a message to Lamha. "You beasts. You guys are really useless. You couldn't even stop them." Lamha replied, "Fuck, you guys came half a day early. Don't you have no way?" XATN2 replied, "It's the same, it's the same." Lamha sent it back. After that, both of them were silent, a strangely heavy feeling rising in their hearts. In front, the dwarf merchant was getting more and more heavily hit. Obviously, the reinforcements of the overbearing scheme were also gradually entering their positions. Every time Lamha's group chased after them, the overbearing scheme used its OT to dodge. This dwarf merchant advanced without any rules, leaving the group extremely helpless. Lamha originally relied on the central grass hall to block them so that they could take advantage. But who would have thought that the people of the central grass hall would be so useless? Falling into a corner, he had no choice but to rearrange his plan again. 2 people in a group. Find the people of the overbearing scheme to deal with it first. The dwarf merchant still couldn't capture it and occasionally hit it once or twice, which was no different from contributing to the overbearing scheme's attack, unable to seize the hatred, and would never be able to take the initiative. If you continue to waste time like this, the overbearing scheme has attacked enough. Whoever wants this boss can kill it. As long as the other group's team still exists, the ownership cannot be taken away, unless you chase or kill all those people. That's why it's said, robbing the boss is really difficult. If you come too late, the amount of attacks won't be able to catch up. Then you can only go down the path of killing people to rob this boss. If the battle turns into PK, the difficulty will be even greater, because the level between people is always very close. Killing people is always harder than killing monsters, and it also leaves behind future disasters. Their Lam Kikak now, on the contrary, doesn't bother to consider future disasters anymore. Everyone is used to directly confronting the overbearing scheme. Robbing the boss leads to PK like this. For them, the key point was that the strength of the overbearing scheme was not much different from theirs. Even if they used such methods, the final chances were still equal. No matter what, anything was better than just watching like this. The number of Lam Kikak's troops that came to the battle was about 20 people. At this time, they were divided into 10 small groups of 2 people, covering the entire forest. As soon as they saw the figure of the overbearing scheme player, they charged straight over. The dwarf merchant was no longer the only focus anymore, but all of the overbearing scheme's people. The small group of 2 people discovered the target and carefully followed the target. But chasing someone was not an easy task. Everyone's level and equipment were not much different. Their movement speed and stamina were not much different. In the end, they formed a half-hearted situation. Chasing and chasing. Lei Ming Jianguang suddenly said in the team channel, "Wow, where is the dwarf merchant? I can't see him anymore." A word to awaken the masses. Everyone only paid attention to the target in front of them. But what about the final target behind this target? Is he alive or dead? Everyone quickly paid attention. Only then did they discover that although the dwarf merchant could still be seen from this distance, it suddenly became too far away. "I've been tricked." Hizhou reacted promptly. "This boss, let's give up," Lonnie said in a depressed voice. The entire guild did not say a word. This kind of situation in a famous guild like Lan Shigu was extremely rare. Feeling hopeless after fighting halfway through, this kind of feeling could only be brought about by clearing a new instance or an unfamiliar boss. But now, it was just a dwarf merchant, a small boss that everyone was bored of killing, and the opponent was a familiar tyrannical schemer. Simply because the other side had another Lord Grimm, they had raised the difficulty to the same level as clearing the instance, and quickly made them give up. "Hey, why don't you guys continue chasing?" XHN sent a message over at this time. "Leave it to you guys." Lonnie said, "What the hell do you want to do? Xa Qianzi was immediately suspicious. You can chase them, and you'll know. Xa Qianzi and his group, who had just switched from the front line to the rear to attack, had not yet fully experienced the abnormal teleportation method of using OT to control the dwarf merchant when killing monsters of the overbearing scheme this time. Their fighting spirit was still resounding. However, this was also a matter of the moment. Zhong Qiaotang chased for a while and was finally completely shocked by this OT teleportation method. After trying left and right but still unable to solve it, Xa Qianzi solemnly declared, "Two people in a group. Kill the people of the overbearing scheme." Although the people of Lan Shigu had given up, they still followed to watch. When they saw that Zhong Qiaotang had also dispersed to chase and kill the overbearing scheme just like them, they suddenly felt very happy. TSK, 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 TSK. The crowd was filled with such sounds. 5 minutes later, Xa Qianzi sent a message to Lan He. "Fuck you. Say it straight, you'll die." Obviously, they had discovered that using this tactic would end up being made fun of. "Do you believe me?" Lan He replied. Xa Qianzi pondered for a long time, then replied heavily, "Absolutely not." "That's it," Lan He said. "What should we do now? Do you guys want to give up?" Xa Qianzi said. "Oh," Lan He said. "I find it hard to believe." Xa Qianzi said. "Fuck you." Lan He was at a loss. The people of Zhong Qiaotang dejectedly gathered at one point. The people of Lan Shiga not far from them, far away from them, was the dwarf merchant. Other players or miscellaneous guilds, those with qualifications had all seen that Zhong Qiaotang and Lan Shiga were completely defeated by the other party. These two big guilds have the level, the organization. In the end, they can't find any profit. What new tricks can the first-class guilds and wandering soldiers like them do? At this time, if everyone can unite, there might still be hope. But will there be a leader? Xa Qianzi was excited. He walked in front of Lan He and said bluntly, "We can't kill them, and we can't let the tyrannical scheme take advantage. Unite everyone. Let's not let anyone take the lead, as long as they don't hang the tyrannical scheme's name. Just the dwarf merchant. What's the point of doing it on such a large scale?" Lan He said. Xa Qianzi thought, it really didn't make sense. This was just a low-level wild map small boss. Even if the tyrannical scheme took it, it wouldn't mean anything. The road ahead was still very long. "You're just unwilling," Xa Qianzi said. "Then you go. I'm not stopping you." Lamha said, "Damn, this is a waste of effort and no gain. I won't do it alone." Xa Tian-Tu said. Chapter 79, Old Man Xianyi. The hunt for the dwarf merchant started off very lively, but ended peacefully. The two major guilds, Lan Shigu and Zhong Qiaotang, both left. The other guilds with higher levels also saw the clue and decided not to waste any more time. The remaining few scattered soldiers still did not understand the situation and continued to not give up, but in the end, they all ended up assisting the tyrannical scheme. Finally, when the system announced the news that the Overlord scheme had taken over the dwarf merchant, both Lanchi Pavilion and Zhongxiao Hall were extremely calm. Being able to list the guild's name showed that the members who took over the head did not include those outside the guild, but Jun Ma Xiao had only left Lanchi Pavilion for less than 5 days, so of course he could not have joined the Overlord scheme, and of course he had to leave the team right before the boss fell, and of course he did not appear on the personal board, keeping the entire Overlord scheme team intact. Lanha was extremely disdainful of this, because everyone among them knew that the Overlord scheme was able to kill the dwarf merchant, and Jun Ma Xiao's contribution was very great. Lanha firmly believed that this kind of battle strategy of using OT to control the boss was not something that people in the Overlord scheme could do. Because the people of Lan Shiga couldn't do it, then there was no doubt. An opponent of equal ability like Mu Tu Ba Dao definitely couldn't do it either. It was all because they relied on Jun Mo Zhao's command. Now Lan He had completely admitted that Jun Mo Xiao was strong, not on the same level as them. This was a great master far superior to ordinary players like them. Such a strong person, how could he not have any reputation? Could it be that he was a master who created a secondary account? Lan He naturally wouldn't consider Jun Mo Xiao as a newcomer. Such a strong commander, there was no way he could be a newcomer. "Brother." Lan He opened his good friend list and calmly sent a message to Jun Mo Xiao. "When do you plan to level up to 23? Everyone is very concerned about this issue, huh?" Yi Xiu replied. Lonnie did not feel surprised. Moreover, the reason why everyone was concerned about this matter was also very simple. Only level 23 could enter the Maikat Chijia dungeon. Everyone was waiting for this person to level up and then invite him to help them take the top spot in the dungeon. Today, the tyrannical schemes had obtained the dwarf merchant, which could be considered a great bargain, and they had definitely completely recognized the value of this great expert. I don't know either. Let's just play. Yi Xiu replied again. Maikat Chijia must find us. Lonnie said. Let's talk about this later. Yi Xiu did not answer with certainty. Lonnie's expression at this moment looked quite miserable. He had already predicted that, in order to take the record or maintain the record in District 10, this Lord Grimm would become the target for their guilds to fight desperately. With his recent understanding of Lord Grimm's calmness, he was afraid that it would become a situation of hiring high-priced people. This situation, he himself was not sure if he could control it. Lam Ha thought, temporarily exited the game, logged in again, and went to Lam Kio Xian Tuet's main account. At this time, any player in any area, including the Chi Lin Vuk, was busy grinding the number of times the new dungeon had been reacquired. But Lam Kio Xian Tuet had just come online, naturally still causing the people in the guild to pay attention. This was one of the 5 great masters of the guild. Moreover, wasn't she going to reclaim Area 10? Why did she suddenly run out here? The first person to message Lam Ha was the president of Lam Ki Kak, Xiandike Lao. The message was very simple. For question marks. Busy. Lam Ha asked. Ban, meant going to the dungeon. Come out here to talk. Lam Ha said. Urgent. It's not urgent, but I want to discuss something with you. Xian Yi Lao replied with such few words and many meanings. Not because he was a man of few words, but simply because he was lazy to type. This guy's movements were also very fierce, and he really liked to move his movements. He would rather do some boring movements to improve his hand speed than move his fingertips to chat. The most famous was when someone spammed and scolded Xian Yi Lao on the World Channel. But Xian Yi Lao was clearly online but didn't bother to reply. This was not something that a guild leader of a large guild should do, even if he was lazy to argue with others. But sitting in this guild leader position, being scolded by someone with his name and surname on the World Channel, the entire guild felt very embarrassed. The people in the guild complained to him, but Xian Yi Lao said that he had already replied. Everyone was upset. Later, someone carefully searched the World Channel and found it. Among the long line of news on the World Channel, Xian Yi Lao replied with a total of 3 words, including 2 abbreviations. SB get lost. Shabai stupid. Everyone in the guild, high and low, bowed their heads in respect. From then on, SB get lost became the 3-word curse motto of Lam Ki Kak, until now. Lam Ha was an old acquaintance of his, and had long been used to this habit of his, so he sat there without saying anything and waited. More than 10 minutes later, Xian Yi Lao sent a message. Where is Ki Sun Tan? Lam Ha replied. Ki Sun Tan is a large town within the divine domain. Because the word Ki is in its name, it was chosen by Lam Ki Kak as the place to build a guild. A moment later, Xiandike Lao ran over. The two met. Xiandike Lao spoke, so he didn't skip any words. What happened? A great expert appeared in Area 10. Lam Ha said. How tall? Xiandike Lao was a bit surprised. Just because of an expert, Lam Ha had to watch helplessly and then ran back to report to him. Can't tell how tall. Lam Ha said. What profession? Never changed profession. Lam Ha said. Didn't change profession? Yeah. Learned all kinds of professional skills. Seems to be playing loose. Lam Ha said. Xiandike Lao laughed and said, the early stage of the loose person is naturally high. The advantage in skills is really too obvious. The later, without intermediate or advanced skills, the attack cannot keep up with anyone, and also have to carry a lot of weapons. The heavier the weapon, the slower the speed. The critical point is that by level 50, it will be impossible to continue playing. Who still plays loose person now? At first I thought so too, but this person's strengths are not just that. I have to admit that he has the advantage in skills in the early stage, but this person's operations, reasoning, team command, and coordination are all very strong. Lonnie said, at the beginning of the year, those who dare to play as a loose person, of course, must have comprehensive knowledge. But, Elder Xian Yi said for a while, also understanding that such an explanation was too forced, just a person with comprehensive knowledge, could not possibly make Lan He so emotional. The current situation in District 10, he took the lead 3 times in the Novice Village. The Frost Forest dungeon record belonged to our team because of his participation. The dwarf merchant was also taken by the tyrannical scheme because of his participation, the time he took the lead in Blood Archer. He brought a group of passers-by who did not care about the 3 major guilds to take it away. Lan He felt that this pile of achievements was convincing enough. Played with us? And helped the tyrannical scheme? Then he did not care about the 3 major guilds to take away Blood Archer? Which side is he on? Xian Yilao was puzzled. Not on any side. I tried to attract people, but they weren't interested at all. It seems like this guy just wants to continue to hire people, then rely on his value to make a lot of money. Lan He said, "This guy is a bit strange. What's his name?" Jun Mo Xiao. Jun Mo Xiao? Have you ever heard of a master with that name in this area? Xian Yilao was confused. Chapter 80, Guild Master's Anguish. Never heard of it. Lan He could only vaguely tell Elder Xian. If it really is such a character, let me go meet him sometime. Elder Xian said. Yeah. Wait until he's level 23. I've already made an appointment with him to record the record for the Mai Kot Chijiao instance. Remember him then. Lan He said. He's not even 23 yet. Elder Xian was surprised. Only 21. Lan He felt a little embarrassed for Lord Grimm. No matter how you put it, in online games, level is always a symbol, a hot expert in Area 10. With such a common level, this made those who were about to reach 25 like Lan He and the others speechless. Hey. If I have the chance, I'll go meet him. Elder Xian said. Then I'll leave it to you next time. Lan He said. Okay. Old Xian nodded. Although he didn't say it directly, but Lan He's intention was very clear. He hoped that this time the real boss of the guild would be him. He would come there to decide what kind of attitude to use towards this expert, whether to do anything to attract him. After chatting casually for a while, watching old Xian leave, Lan He habitually praised his big account a bit, and was about to exit the game, when he suddenly heard a voice that he didn't like at all ringing in his ears. Ah, old Lan? Why are you free to come back? How unlucky. Just came back for a bit, but kept running into this guy. Lan He sighed, turned his gaze, and immediately saw the name that sounded profound, Tui Duan Quan Bo, and his entire body of money-burning equipment. Nothing. I just came back to take a look. Lan He replied indifferently. If you're so free, let's go to the arena and play a couple of rounds. Tui Duan Quan Bo naturally regretted the missed match last time. No time. I still have to go back to the new area to run the dungeon. Lam Ha clearly refused. Probably not for long. Tui Duan Quan Bo probably liked to hold back his voice when speaking, pretending to be gentle. This person, from his name to his actions and equipment, was an extremely show-off, and the hidden meaning behind it was clearly implying that he didn't need to spend much effort to defeat Lam Ha. Lam Ha was a person of pride, immediately became hot-blooded, his blood boiled, and he wanted to violently KO this guy 2 games in a row, but suddenly a voice came. Lam Xiao, you haven't left yet? Lam Ha turned his gaze, seeing Xian Daik Lao, who didn't know why, had returned here. Go. Lam Ha spoke up, ignoring Tui Duan Quan Bo, and directly logged out. Xian Daik Lao's return was to help him get out of trouble. Lam Ha understood very well. Tui Duan Quan Bo had always been suppressing him step by step. Many people in the guild knew. Although there were rumors that the guild leader had sent Lam Ha to District 10 to suppress him and raise Tui Duan Quan Bo, but Lam Ha knew very clearly in his heart that Xian Daik Lao's move was on one hand to prevent him and Tui Duan Quan Bo from fighting with each other. Because if they fought like this, no matter who won or lost, they would lose face, and would even lose the face to continue staying in the guild and leave. Leaving was no different from being forced to leave. It would definitely cause a lot of people to disagree, leading to disappointment with the guild, and in the end it could cause a great deal of damage. After all, Tui Duan Quan Bo and Lam Ha were representatives of the 2 new and old forces in Lam Ki Kak. On the other hand, in fact, Xian Daik Lao was disguised to help Lam Ha consolidate his position. At first glance, it seemed that Lam Ha was moving away from the central layer of the divine realm here, but in the 10th district, he was the master, and there was no telling how many new experts he would recruit there. Waiting for Lam Ha to lead these people into the divine realm, It was still hard to say whether this old boss Xiandike Lao would still exist, so there was no need to discuss a small onion route like Tui Duan Quan Bo. Sending them to the new district was to let Lam Ha build his own foundation, saying something like expulsion, thinking like that was a bit naive. Lam Ha was very clear about this, because from the beginning to the end, Xiandike Lao had been extremely calm and clear with him. This person also told him directly, if Lam Ha wanted a PK with Tui Duan Quan Bo, he didn't think Lam Ha had the advantage. He thought that if the victory and defeat of the two were divided into 3 parts, Lam Ha would only take 2 parts. Lam Ha was helpless. He also knew that he couldn't easily be sure of winning against Tui Duan Quan Bo in his hands. Now it seemed that Xiandike Lao saw through it even more. Lam Ha understood clearly in his heart, seeing Xiandike Lao suddenly circle back to help him out. He felt the thoughts that he was thinking about, so he didn't argue with Tui Duan Quan Bo anymore, and directly logged out. Speaking of which, in that moment of logging out, Lam Ha suddenly thought of a strange thought. He really wanted to see how a show-off like Tui Duan Quan Bo would turn out if he was completely suppressed by a great master like Quan Mo Tiu. This thought was a bit evil. Lam Ha patted his head. No matter what, Tui Duan Quan Bo is also a member of the same guild. The internal conflict between them. How can I expect an outsider to come and embarrass my people? However, I'm still really looking forward to it. Lam Ha found that he couldn't lie to himself. Oh, he's so cheesy. After sighing twice, Lam Ha logged back into his Zone 10 account. As soon as he went online, someone in the guild called him to go to the dungeon. Lam Ha looked at the experience bar that was about to reach level 25, and a ting suddenly went off in his mind. He had forgotten something. Remembering that, he hurriedly opened his friend list to find Lord Grimm. Want to go to the Frost Forest with us again? The record for the Frost Forest dungeon was not yet final. Players of similar levels like them were about to reach level 25 immediately, after changing to level 25 equipment. This was when the Frost Forest dungeon recorded its final achievement. But, even if they were wearing level 25 equipment, wanting them to imitate Lord Grimm using one wave of rush, there was no problem with anything else, but the job of leading monsters and gathering monsters was really impossible for any of them. To be honest, they had all secretly tried it. Lonnie had always hoped that Lord Grimm would quickly reach level 23 so that he could go to the Bone Maiden Land with them, completely forgetting that the Frost Forest had yet to be completely conquered. This, Yi Xiu replied hesitantly. Didn't we make an appointment again? Lonnie almost fainted. We did make an appointment. Yi Xiu was helpless. Is it the tyrannical scheme again? Lonnie was upset. That's right. Brother, I made an appointment with you for the Bone Maiden Land, and you always told me to talk later. Why did you agree right away when they made an appointment? Lonnie had tears streaming down his face. You made me appointments for things that I can't do right now. The Frost Forest, we can go tonight. Yi Xiu said. Lonnie was out of options. He decided to keep an eye on Lord Grimm's level. Wait until it turned into 23, then make an appointment to go to my Kot Chi Jia right away. Frost Forest. Lonnie looked back at the record and felt a bit heartbroken. They had just created it not long ago. It would definitely die tonight. Maybe not. Lonnie suddenly thought. Although their levels had all reached 25, but in terms of equipment, it was uncertain if they could catch up so quickly. They were currently using level 20 purple weapons. That was because the dungeon in the novice village had no entry limit. In the process of leveling up to 20, they would naturally find a lot of equipment. But what about now? Although level 25 purple equipment dropped in both Frost Forest and Boneland, purple weapons did not have such a high drop rate. It had only been 2 days, and each patch was 4 times. Could they get enough for the whole team? Calculating like this, the result was that he was still upset. Although level 25 purple equipment was not as abundant as level 20, it was still possible to get enough for a team. If Lan Shigu and the others could do it, then surely the tyrannical scheme would not be a problem either. Sigh.